Welcome to the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from global industry leaders about how to grow and scale a business in hospitality, travel, food service, and technology. I'm Jason Emanis with my co-host Adam Mogolinsky. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Our guest today is Jess Hayes, sales executive with Plus Grade. How are you, Jess?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So our format for the podcast is we're focusing on timeless lessons. And we've boiled it down to 4 questions to frame the podcast and make it very, very short and sweet. So we're going to get right in with the first question, and that is, when it comes to scaling a business, Jess, what is the single piece of advice you would give entrepreneurs from your perspective as a professional in hospitality?
I think align sales and marketing very quickly. Don't invest too much in sales and not enough in marketing would be my number one advice. I've seen it where there's too much of a focus from the sales perspective. And I think the way people buy has really changed.
Good answer.
Just trying to butter up Jason here.
Yeah, the marketing guy in the room.
Yeah, just straight up.
Yeah.
I think we've experienced it a lot, right? And that's the key. People's buying behaviors have changed. They don't want to be interrupted. So you've got to get out in front, right? Before the Jess Hayes and her crew call you up or shoot you a LinkedIn message, you know, the market's got to have some kind of idea of what this product is, what this company is.
And I think, getting to know the customer as fast as possible, falling in love with your customer, talking to them all the time, and then being able to rinse and repeat and tell those stories, right? And so telling those stories is not singularly from a marketing perspective or a sales perspective, it's from both. And so, when you're selling into hotels, because they're getting inundated by so many vendors and messages, being super clear and focused on how you can help and telling that story.
Well, in my mind, this is something that I've grappled with every day, which is almost this tech blur. That's what I call it, the cacophony of digital noise that's in marketers. And it's like people are tuning out. It's a constant game of evolution and adaptation. And I'm wondering what's working for you right now in Q1 2023 to break through that noise?
Removing friction from the implementation process and the sales process. So, I sell software. That's what I've been doing, for 25 years, whether it's selling, training, implementing, account managing. So I've seen all pieces of it. And I think, if you are going to add to the workload of a hotelier, introducing a piece of technology that's going to drastically change their day, not improve their day. I always talk about using technology for good, not evil. So making sure that there's a process in place to make it really easy to implement, train, automate where you can, use technology where you can. But then at the end of the day, make them money, That's what it's about. And then, so what's working is getting very focused on the message and making sure it resonates with them and helps helps them sleep at night.
Well, one more follow-up. Aren't a lot of these things that improve their day instead of just add more workload, aren't they a lot of short-term pain, long-term gain?
I think, of course, for sure. But I think especially now with the labor shortage and the fact that everybody is so sort of overwhelmed, it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? So, and you need to be able to tell the long-term story, but the short-term story is what I've really been focusing on.
It's Jess and I have talked about this in the recent past. It's a priority challenge. Like you said, Adam, there's a whole bunch of noise, and then there's a whole bunch of priorities that have been set months in advance. And you as a salesperson or a marketer, anyone coming in with a new idea, it's got to develop. You better be using the right language, or it's going to, they'll just tune out. But not only that, it's being consistent. I think it really helps when you have leaders in an organization out in front that somebody like Jess can come in behind a week later or whatever, hey, did you see our CEO on podcast XYZ? and I've seen Jess do this in the past, just addressing the problem. Like if you're not addressing the problem, no one really cares.
So then it's how do you find that problem? Everyone has a different problem.
I think the problem, we all know if you're bought into a technology company, for example, but finding the person who cares most about the problem, right? Because in a given hotel, you've got so many stakeholders. And so who's the person who's going to look like a hero by implementing your solution, and who cares the most, right? So that's kind of what makes our jobs fun.
Yeah, I've used the term finding the internal champion.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I really like you phrasing it as a question, saying who's going to be the hero? Who's going to look like the hero? I really like that.
That comes from literally my first job in hospitality, where I worked for Newmarket, which is Amadeus now. And I flew out every Sunday, came back every Friday, and trained hotels how to use their sales and catering software. And they went, this is going to make me seem kind of old, but they went from a paper function diary to an automated, system where they were checking space and giving rates for groups. But what Newmarket did at the time was so genius. They created a role for the person who cared most about the software. And it was they were called the key operator, right? So, the key operator then became the champion internally for all questions related to the program. So that's, I learned it ages ago, and I still try to find, the person who gets really jazzed about automating the things that are pain points for them.
Wow. I like it. Key operator, find that hero. Okay, so on to the second question. Jess, what are some of the common pitfalls or failures you have witnessed that business owners should look to avoid when scaling their business?
How long do you have? No, I've really learned what not to do. And I think leadership is what I look for most now in any relationship, work-wise. I have this big issue with fear-based leadership. And where that can translate to this question is, I've seen a lot of CEOs focus too much on the competition, for example. So they're constantly in fear mode about, what their competition is doing. And that can be really distracting. You want to be aware, you want to know, but to go down the road of trying to chase competition or out feature them, adding features just because they're doing it, I think, again, going back to the customer, just stay in touch with your customer. Love your customer, talk to your customer. They'll tell you what needs to be enhanced and what doesn't. But also be very realistic about the sales cycle in hospitality because there are so many stakeholders, because it is often hard to find the person who cares the most, and because there's turnover, right? Mm-hmm. So just really have a lot of empathy for hotels and yeah, I could go on, but those are the main points.
It's as Jeff Bezos says, is just being customer obsessed.
Yeah.
The follow-up question I have is you mentioned the T word, turnover. And what can business owners do to avoid or limit turnover?
It's hard to create loyalty, right? Corporate dynamics have changed quite a bit. We people don't have the 401k, they don't have the pensions, they don't have the benefits as much as they used to. So in absence of that, or in addition to it, to augment benefits and things like that, I think creating loyalty, creating a culture, again, opposite of fear-based, where you want to go to work every day, you care about what you do. And that comes from hire leaders. You're a leader, but hire leaders. Don't hire people who, are just in it for the paycheck. I think if you're building a team in a hotel, treat them like family. People spend more time at work than they do with their own families. And so you need to be really respectful of that and know, different people are motivated by different things. Know what your employees are motivated by. Some are motivated by numbers. Some are motivated by, team building activities and
yeah. The one thing that's just racking my brain right now is hotels are in a different situation than other sectors, because at the same time, we want to oblige the new push for remote work or flexible hours, and yet operations dictates that you be on site for a set time.
Yeah.
So How does a hotel thread that needle?
Well, so I think in hospitality, you're in front of the guest because you want to be in front of the guest. So you
Right.
have to find the people who really don't want to be behind a computer all the time and who really get energy from interacting with other people. There's a lot of people out there that if they're rewarded by, guest interactions and creating experiences for guests that are above and beyond, and then feeling like they have the internal support to implement new ideas, new programming at hotels. You can really create something really special if you care about the guest experience and if you love interacting with people. Do you need balance so that you can then do some of your work remotely, hybrid work? Absolutely. And this goes back to automation. There's so much more that we can automate now in a hotel that we couldn't before. So really leverage the technology, and then use the people for what people do best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more attempts at flexibility and automation to keep the number of employees in a hotel at any given day down, because they're already struggling to fill jobs. But equipping those that you do have, giving them what they need, and with automation and with the flexibility that there's ways to do it. You're going to have happy employees. You're going to have a better guest experience.
It always comes back to the team. All right, third question. Jess, what do you see as the key opportunities and challenges for hotel companies in 2023 and beyond?
We've been talking about it. I think it's employee retention, employee engagement, creating new cultures of work where, hospitality has been a little behind traditionally in adopting technology. And I think the gift of what we've all been through with the pandemic is now, there's an urgency that wasn't there before. And we need to leverage that and take advantage of that as collective industry, right? And just invest in your people, invest in good leadership, and invest in technology. Otherwise, the challenges, they're going to get worse because the way people want to work is very different than it used to be. And the juice has to be worth the squeeze, or they'll go elsewhere. So,
Something that you said, create a new culture. And I'm always thinking that everything is constantly shifting or transitioning. So what advice would you give to transition a culture that maybe is resistant to the automation forces and everything that's happening so quickly, so that way they can be better at transitioning to this new economy, whatever it is?
I think hiring a diverse workforce will help with that. So you want people who have diverse skill sets, whether it's age, you want people who are very experienced, but then you want people right out of college who are hungry and want to learn on the fly. So getting different perspectives, people who love technology, who want to dig into data, right? Hire those people who want to spend time analyzing the data so that they can help with your forecasting and things like that. And then again, find the people who want to be in front of the guest. So just embracing people where they are, which is varying levels of experience and backgrounds. And
equipping them, I think, is also kind of where your brain's going. Is
yes, thank you. Yeah,
millennials would rather do things on their phone. They would rather text than call.
Yeah,
and it goes back to some of the automation and the technology that, you may have heavy technology in your hotel, which is kind of antiquated and clunky. The way people want to work, is they want a flexibility. You can hold them accountable, but they don't want you standing over them. But if you're, let's just say your app in a hotel has a means to hold people accountable for the tasks at hand, the guest request, whatever it may be. It's just, again, I think, you said it when we first started, it's just the way people want to work has really, really changed, even, for the older crowd like us, or me.
Yeah. I heard a speaker talking about, hiring, and he was saying, like, when you get a resume from somebody, a millennial or younger, text them, right? Don't start emailing them back and forth. By the time you email them back and forth, they've found another job, right? So know who you're hiring and how they want to interact, it all starts with the hiring process.
You mentioned millennials, and
Mm.
I'm thinking you say fresh out of college. Now we're talking about Gen Z and
Yeah.
soon Gen Alpha, which are, I guess, people born only a few years ago. So, how are we? Can we adapt to the newer generations, even younger than millennials?
I think they're going to be more mission driven than previous generations. And this is just completely based on, you know, anecdotal, nothing factual. But I
Mhm.
think they are going to want to make an impact. They've seen a lot of upheaval. You know, the good news about all the change that we've been through is innovation. Like, this is what
Mhm.
gets me jazzed, is when things are broken, when systems are broken, workplaces are broken, you know, that's when the innovation happens. And so I have a ton of like optimism around what this new generation is going to be able to do. Having learned from us, like, we've had to learn everything the hard way. You know, I don't want to sound like the person who like walked barefoot to school in the snow so that other people didn't have to. But, you know, I think it's true.
Well, just to color that a little bit more, you say mission, and what missions would you say are most attractive to Gen Z and beyond?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about hospitality and travel, you know, there's a lot of buzzwords around the experience. But, you know, when people are not in front of their devices, which they are so much, when they're not, then their experiences have to rival what's in front of their devices. So
Mhm.
I think they have to really be motivated to make changes, to put themselves out in the world, to make an impact. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, I think you're already seeing some of the younger generation at work
Mhm.
require a connecting of the dots. With me here, what does this mean to the whole operation? Like, you know, am I just pushing a broom, or help me connect the dots? And I think that's where there's a lot of leadership training at mid-level and higher managers. There's a lot of need there because it's we've all been managers, and that's tough. Managing people is tough.
Start with why, as they say,
Hmm.
that famous book. And yeah, it's so important nowadays. You really have to instill that mission. So the fourth question, Jess, what are the key things innovative leaders and entrepreneurs should prioritize and focus on to gain traction for their business?
I think this sort of goes back to the first question where you get to know your customer in a radical way. Really just get to know them and then tell their stories over and over again through sales and marketing. I mean, gaining traction, that's how it's done. You know, being able to say, well, you know, the hotel down the street has implemented this ancillary revenue program and they've seen, you know, $10,000 a month with upgrades, for example. So being able to tell the story succinctly over and over again and build your fan base.
Yeah, totally agree. Everything is wrapped. All the magic is in those first customers,
Hmm.
and your ability to see just a little bit beyond, but lean on those folks because they give you the language. They tell you what problem they solved. Like you might go in there as a salesperson and say, you know, we're this is what this is, and they may use it a little differently. Well, you need
Yeah.
to know that because that may be like, wow, we didn't think about that, and we've talked to 6 other hotels down the street that have that problem. Hey, can we change our language up a little bit as a salesperson, as a marketing person, and take that message a little further, and then just reiterate, keep looking, go back to the customer.
And if you're an early to market innovator, if you're a bleeding edge technology, if you're introducing something new, be very honest with them about what that's going to look like, because I've seen companies, back to your second question, go to market too early before the software was ready for the group that they're being sold to. And then the initial customer experiences are not good ones. And that will kill a company pretty fast if
Hmm.
if they go to market at the wrong time. So it's a tricky thing, but it's very important.
Right. You only get one shot.
Yeah, you get one
Yeah.
shot, and so if the experience is not great, right, then be the type of company that's going to circle back and go, okay, we get it, we understand, and do something right away.
You're raising something very important here, which is customer feedback.
Mhm.
And a lot of that customer feedback, the juice of it, can't really be boiled down to a quantifiable survey. So we're talking about one-on-one conversations, salespeople, marketers speaking to the customer saying, how are we doing? How can we improve? But then as you gain traction, how do you maintain that one-to-one relationship, but do it at scale?
Customer management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scale your customer success team, I
Mhm.
think, this is going to probably sound funny, but don't overly invest in sales. It's
Check your email. You may be out of a job.
but customer success is part of sales. They need to resell the program all the time to the customer.
Yeah.
And
We've
and
experienced
also,
it recently.
yeah, the people who buy the software are not necessarily the people using it. So it's crucial that you're talking to the end users.
That's a really good point, because you develop a relationship as a salesperson with this
Mhm.
executive, and then the users down the hall. And then, and if you've got a strong customer service person that's checking in routinely, that gets emails with questions and answers them, then the whole relationship stays together. It's not falling down. Like we've seen when there wasn't that customer service person, like even in the startup, if it's a young, competent, eager person who wants to be there for 10 customers, whatever it is, and they're attentive, and then they relay to you as a salesperson, hey, just heads up, this is what's going on. Because I've seen you in action personally stay on top of accounts and your communications with the account, and then your internal communications with, hey, what's going on? This is what I heard. What's going on? Are we doing anything about it? And you have rocky moments. You always have rocky moments. Not everything is going to go smooth, right? And
Yes.
I've been a part of companies where they were really attentive. And I've been a part of those companies that have been sold and bought by bigger companies, and the bigger companies aren't as attentive.
Mm.
And it's like,
Wow. Jess, this has been fantastic. There's been a lot of great lessons here, both for right now in 2023, but also lessons that will apply for 2033. So I can't thank you enough for coming on.
thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.